Hi, and welcome back to the Adored Woman podcast. I'm your host, Naomie Thompson. Have you ever wondered why you keep ending up in the same kind of relationship again and again, even when you swore this time it would be different? Different from your relationship with your dad, different from your relationship with all your exes and your ex-husband. Why, no matter how much you know better, no matter how much more personally developed you are, your body still feels on edge the moment you start getting closer with someone, the moment things start feeling real with him, the moment there is more vulnerability required for the closeness needed for a great relationship. Well, today I am joined by Raj Lehl. Raj is a holistic nervous system specialist who helps people understand what is actually happening in their bodies when it comes to love and anxiety and connection. Because so much of what we chalk up to bad luck in dating or just being anxious may actually be your nervous system just trying to protect you based on things your body hasn't let go of yet from the past. So in this episode, we're getting into the real physical side of love, why your body might be keeping you stuck and what it actually takes to feel safe enough to let someone in, to let a really great partner in. So if you've ever felt like your head and your heart are saying yes, but something else inside of you is saying no way, then this one is for you. Because sometimes we wonder, is it our intuition that this guy isn't right for me? Or is it my fear of intimacy? So let's get into it. Raj, it is absolutely such a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Great. Well, let's just get stuck in. So Raj, you talk about our bodies holding on to shock and trauma and grief from things that have happened in the past. So how does that show up specifically in women's romantic relationships or dating patterns?
Okay, so anyone who's been dating for a while will be able to recognize some or all of these. And I admit I've done them, actually pretty much all of them myself. Cancelling your date after you've been speaking to somebody for a while and you were in a place where you were looking forward to it, but suddenly at the last minute, you find an excuse not to see them. I remember feeling relieved when a babysitter couldn't make it because it meant I didn't have to go on the date.
God, yeah.
Constantly looking for red flags, rejecting somebody before you can be in a place where they can reject you, people pleasing, getting really anxious if somebody hasn't responded to your text in anything from 4 to 24 hours. And there may be a very legitimate reason why they haven't. And as you know, with the work that you do, people have different attachment styles. People also have different styles of communication on WhatsApp. And there'll be many others that misinterpreting neutral situations, for example, pulling away when somebody's getting too close, keeping people at arm's length and not allowing the relationship to develop any deeper, really wanting to be a part of a family, a community, but you keep on putting off the day and the time when you're going to meet someone's mum or going to meet their family members or meet their kids, and generally looking for any reason you can to reject the person so that you don't have to put yourself in that position of vulnerability again.
God, yeah. It's like, you said you've done this yourself. You are a very intelligent, very self-aware woman. I have done this myself. I recognize so many of those things. I know I'm a very self-aware woman and the women I work with, and I'm sure the women you work with. So what is happening when you've got someone who is self-aware, who kind of knows better in a way, who knows, maybe understands cognitively some of what's going on, yet she still does it?
This is where it comes down to really knowing yourself. And more often than not, we walk through life not taking the time to actually understand ourselves. And there's this common misconception that we have that when we're feeling something or we have symptoms, that there's something wrong that needs to be stopped in its tracks, whether it's fatigue, whether it's a cold. We just want to take something to stop it so we can get on with our lives, so that we can go to work, hang out with our friends, go on holiday, so that we can leave that feeling of discomfort and feel comfortable again. But our bodies are actually working with us and for us, and our bodies are our messengers, and they're continually giving us these messages. And all we need to do is slow everything down, and that's what my work is about, and listen to what those messages are telling us.
So that's really interesting you say that, because about sort of slowing down and noticing what's going on is like being cognizant of it. And I'm having some therapy at the moment and things are coming up, and there is sometimes this feeling of, I thought I dealt with all the stuff, but then more comes up, especially being in now a really committed relationship, being engaged, our first year of living together. Stuff just comes up. I knew stuff was coming up, and it had been for a few days, and I was in the kitchen and Charlie said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm just getting busy avoiding my feelings for a while, but in about an hour I could really do with a long hug." And it was
Perfect.
like, I knew I was getting busy. I knew I just wanted to get this barbecue organized and the salad chopped. And I just wanted to get busy, busy, busy. I didn't want to stop and collapse and feel my feelings. But there was that feeling of, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to name what I'm doing. I wasn't willing to stop being busy and avoiding my feelings. I was able in that moment to just speak it and say, this is what I'm doing right now. Because we can't always just shift, can we, into, right, now I'm calm now, or now I can just express every feeling.
No, we can't. And I think that you handled that so well, because you let your partner know that it wasn't something that they've done, that they have to fix or that they have to apologize for, that it's about you. And you gave very clear, and especially for men, clear instructions and parameters on what you were doing and what you needed when, so that he could go away, give you your space, and then come back in an hour and give you a big hug. And I think that's perfect. So Stephen Porges coined the term neuroception. So our nervous system is continually scanning for threat and safety. And this is going on in our subconscious. So we may not actually even be aware of what it is that has triggered us, that has brought up feelings in our body, but they're coming up and we may not be able to understand it at the time. It'll take a little while for our awareness to catch up, for us to actually think, okay, what was that about? And so the way that you communicated that, and now you can look back and you can say, okay, it was about this, was absolutely perfect. And I think that's a great thing to do when you're in those situations. And you often find that on dates. Actually, I have a lot of people tell me when they go on a date, there will be something that someone sitting in front of them has said, because when we go on a date, we're not just going as ourselves, me, I am right now, and that person, how they are right now. We're taking our whole emotional history with us in our nervous system. And there may be something in a tone of voice. There may be something in a micro expression. And we start to feel this horrible feeling rising up from our gut into our chest. Our heart starts to beat faster. You've been there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what it's about. And you've got somebody sitting in front of you, you might start to sweat, and they can be really, really tricky situations. And often people then run from that and they don't want to repeat it, or they think dating's not for me. But actually there are ways of managing that.
Yes, absolutely. And a question I do get asked a lot, and I remember asking myself this question when I was dating, is the anxiety I'm experiencing, is that my fear of intimacy or is that intuition? And how do I tell the difference?
Well, I think knowing yourself here is really, really important. We were talking about this earlier when we say we tend to rush through things. We've got a dinner. Okay, let's get the starter, let's get the main, let's get the dessert, job done, ticked, been out, socialized, been on a date. But when we slow everything down and we're giving our body safety in small increments, so our body is understanding, okay, well, this feels safe, this feels good. When we bypass that and we try to rush everything, that's where the waters become a little bit muddy. So I know with some of the work that you do, you help women clarify what it is that they actually want, what they're looking for, what their values are. Some men and women are happy to sleep with somebody on a first date. Others, it might be 3 months, 6 months down the line. And that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong, but it's about knowing what works for you and what works for your nervous system. Now, relational trauma can only really be healed in the context of relationships. And I know you talk about this as well. So when you first start seeing somebody, you need to be in a place where your nervous system feels safe, where you're not activated. And this will only be in your own timing. It's not something that you can force because other people are doing it. And if the other person is the right person for you, they'll respect that timing. So when it comes down to intuition and red flags, I would say make sure you know what your red flags are. Is somebody pushing you when you're saying no? Is somebody sitting there and are they speaking very badly about their ex or the mother of their children, or about women in general, how are they behaving towards you? And then you can objectively separate those things out. And then I would say just don't force yourself to do anything that you're not ready to do. And that way you're not overriding your intuition. And the more that you do this and the more you start to trust yourself, the greater your confidence and faith you'll have that this is my intuition. This isn't from my past. Objectively, this person hasn't done X, Y, Z. Am I feeling safe with them? So on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you can listen more to your intuition. And something I know I cultivated within myself when I was dating, and I really encourage women, is that you can decide to say no to another date with a guy, another minute with a guy. In fact, another interaction with anybody. You can decide to end that at any point and say no without explaining it to yourself or anyone else. It can just be a no. And I do remember when I was dating, walking away from relationships or potential relationships that could have been really good. And I gave myself the permission to regret it later. And I gave myself the permission to be potentially making a mistake, even though I don't believe we do make mistakes. Because in that moment, it felt more no than yes. And then I can look back and go, well, they were a really great human. There was absolutely nothing wrong with them, but there was something in me maybe that wasn't ready for them. But what the most important thing in that moment was the self-awareness I had. And also as a woman, the ability to not keep second guessing our decision, but we have the right to regret it later. And we have the right to walk away without having to explain it to anyone or having to explain it even to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And that's important as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the difference between anxiety that is anxiety of the situation somebody is in, a stressful life, the life throwing up things that in the moment that are upsetting or stressful, versus that stored trauma and anxiety that's been stored in our body from the past?
I don't think we can compartmentalize. I think that they're both impacting each other. If you're coming from a place of high anxiety anyway, if that's your nature, any curveball that's thrown your way is just going to heighten that anxiety. Whereas there's some people, believe it or not, that actually walk through life, and when they're thrown a curveball, okay, they just adapt, they change is constant. And so we can't separate them both out because our foundations impact whatever it is that we're building on top of that.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of in relationships, I believe we can really grow together. We don't need to show up as our perfect, healed, regulated nervous system self, because really that's just not realistic. And also we're going to often meet a partner who either has similar tolerance for intimacy, or they're going to have their things that are going on. They're going to have their past. They're going to have their nervous system triggers. So what ways could you suggest that people resolve the conflicts and the difficult times in their relationships without thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't be in this. The relationships are too scary and we need to run away.
So there are a couple of things that are my absolute favorites to do. And the first one is, if you've got something serious to talk to your partner about, go for a walk with them. So I don't know if you remember, or if you had this feeling, I know a lot of people will be able to relate, when you were younger and your parents called you down from your room and you heard the tone of voice and you went into the living room and it's after dinner and you see them sitting there, your mum or your dad, and they're holding an envelope, and it's an envelope from the school, and you think, oh no, it's a letter from the school saying I got caught smoking a cigarette behind the bike sheds or drinking vodka, whatever it may be, or stole a library book, and you have that feeling of dread coming up in your body and you either freeze or you want to run away. Well, those feelings, they actually stay with you and they stay in your system. So when we're there with a partner, we're saying, okay, we've got something, we need to talk about something. We need to talk about something serious, or that one or the other is going to be activated and want to run away and will start to feel defensive, which is very natural and very normal when any kind of conflict is I'd say go for a walk, firstly. So when you're walking side by side with somebody, it's rhythmic, it's very, very regulating, and it takes away some of that physiological stress that would be coming up if you were standing, looking at somebody, making eye contact with them, which can be really confrontational. And the second one is, and this one's my absolute favorite, and obviously it depends on how long you've been seeing the person, what you're discussing, and how comfortable you are with this. And it needs to be consensual as well, is to touch each other whilst you're having a conversation. And so I was dating somebody when we had something serious to discuss, because he would feel very, very activated about any kind of an emotional discussion or anything involving emotions, is he would take off his shirt, I'd take off my top, bra on, hugging, touching, squeezing whilst we're speaking. And the skin to skin is not just for mums and babies. It's actually really, really healthy for everybody. You're holding each other. You're co-regulating with each other. You both know that you're not a threat to each other, and you're trying to reach a solution or a compromise or some kind of an understanding without withdrawing affection, without withdrawing love, without the love being parked whilst you have this very serious conversation. So there are different ways of, we call it conflict, or conflict is actually, it's very, very healthy. It doesn't have to be something that is difficult and has something that gets nasty. And this is a really beautiful way that I recommend people do this, and it works really well.
It's just so lovely what you're saying, because this is like so much of what we fear is being abandoned for sharing our feelings.
Yes.
For
Exactly.
speaking up,
Many
for
of us have
speaking
abandonment.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just get so scared of it. You know, often deep down underneath all the layers of everything, when it comes to relationships, friendships, we're just scared of being left out, rejected, abandoned, someone really getting us being vulnerable, and them getting to, so if someone really, really gets to know me, they're going to leave. So I need to keep a bit of a distance, you know. Whereas what you're saying is, even if it's just holding hands, it could be as you are with shirts off, it could be holding hands, it could just be stroking, but something that says, I'm still here. Like in this moment, we're in it together. And that's beautiful.
Yes.
Often I talk about creating a sanctuary relationship, a relationship that is a sanctuary for you both to come back to. You both can exist within this sanctuary, and your feelings and your vulnerability is welcome. And I had an experience of this, Raj, recently. As I said before, I'm having therapy and things are coming up. And I did go into quite a, what would I call it? Like a bit of an old trigger spiral. And my pattern then would be to really pull away and just almost like disappear. But I knew what I needed was a hug. And literally we laid together skin to skin, and I could literally feel my nervous system just softening. I could just feel everything. I felt like a soothing wash through my body. Maybe there were specific hormones. Will that have been oxytocin? Do you know what's happening in that moment?
Yeah, your hormone. Absolutely. That's beautiful. And it's fantastic that you recognize that as well. And then that takes the edge off it. That takes the edge off any defensiveness or any bitterness or any resentment or anything where people say things and then they regret them later. It does away with all of that because you're co-regulating. Yeah. And that's actually the fastest way to calm your nervous system.
Whereas what I would have done before, and I know what many of our listeners will do, and the women I work with would do, that the old pattern would be, I start going in this traumatic defensive spiral, pull away, armor goes up, walls go up. It's like the old defense system goes up. And it's about keeping the person away. But this sounds like it's going to be about the communication. It's like, how do I communicate with my partner that when I do this, this is what I need? When I get offensive and prickly, actually what I really need is a hug. Even though it's the last thing. My messaging to you right now is, don't give me a hug when I'm in that state. But actually what I'm saying is, this is what will soften me. This is what will make me feel connected. So it sounds like communication beforehand and afterwards is about how we can educate each other in a relationship as to what we need in those times.
Absolutely. And communication is key for that. Keep communicating. So I remember, this is going back a few years now, when I was dating somebody and I was flying out to meet him somewhere where he was working, and it was going to be a lovely trip. And he said he was going to pick me up from the airport. And prior to this, I'm a single mum and I always traveled with the children on my own, so no co-parent. And I was flying back and forth from where their father lived by myself so they could see their dad. when I arrived back with, 2 exhausted kids and the luggage and the car seats and all the paraphernalia that everyone knows you take with you when you take your kids away, there would be nobody at the airport to pick us up, to help ease that burden. And so I had this sense that you're on your own. You're always on your own. And so when he told me that he was going to pick me up at the airport, I thought, okay, fantastic, great. This is amazing. I was really pumped up and really excited about it. But I walked out and he wasn't there. And I looked to the right, I looked to the left, I can't see him anywhere. And then I got that sensation that I was describing earlier, rising up from my gut into my chest, into my throat. I wanted to cry. I was angry. I was upset. My logical mind was not functioning at optimum. He could have gone to the loo. He could have been here or there. I hadn't seen him. And so I stood there and it must have been 30 seconds. But in that 30 seconds, everything had become a catastrophe in my entire system. And he walked up to me and he tried to hug me and I was not receptive to the hug. But I also knew that this wasn't to do with him. This was to do with my background and all the times that I had arrived at the airport and there'd been no one showing up for me and my children. And so I said to him, I'm feeling really upset. Isn't your fault. You've done nothing wrong. It's my stuff. I'm going to need about 15 minutes and then I'll be ready to hug you. So he looked a little bit confused, but after he had those clear instructions, to his credit, he did stay away. We sat in the cab together in silence. And then I found actually it wasn't a whole 15 minutes at all. After a little while, I felt myself starting to soften. And then I reached out and I squeezed his hand and he gave me a big hug and he was just so relieved. But communicating to him that he has not done anything wrong, whereas I could have been angry with him. I could have taken it out on him. When the poor guy didn't do anything, he'd gone to sit down because he was tired as my flight was delayed, which is really reasonable.
Yes.
So I think communication is really important. The other person needs to know that something is moving through your system that doesn't actually have anything to do with them.
What I love about what you said to this guy at the airport is you stated that you were feeling something was going on inside you. And then you said, and it's not your fault. You haven't done anything wrong. And that is so important, isn't it? Because that your communication was congruent. It was clear. You
Yes.
weren't pretending you weren't feeling this, which is what I would have done years ago. I'd have been the cool girl and I'd have stuffed it right down as far as I could. And I would have just put on I'm fine and everything's fine. But something in me was like crunching around inside.
Yeah.
And he feels that there's something going on the inside that is different from what's being presented on the outside. Often the natural conclusion he comes to is, I've done something wrong. She's not happy with me. And then that creates even more disconnection. So just by saying, I'm going through this, you haven't done anything wrong. It's not your fault. This is just what I need. You just created that safety between the two of you in that moment. And that's about sanctuary. Even if you're not married to him now, it doesn't matter. You created a sanctuary relationship in that cab, in that airport. So gosh, that is just so, so valuable for people to hear. What would you say? And you may have already spoken to this, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. If a woman's in a relationship and constantly feels shut down or on edge, or she's people pleasing, or she's like hyper vigilant around her partner, what would you want her to know about what might be happening physiologically?
So this, again, everything comes back down to your nervous system. Your nervous system is your body's command center and it influences everything from sleep, sex, your immunity to how close you allow people and maintaining relationships, romantic relationships. So I think if somebody was in that situation and they came to me to work with me, firstly, I'd want to see what's going on in their body. I'd want to know about their past history, what their previous relationships were like, and then try to identify why they're feeling hypervigilant around this person. And sometimes it is down to, and I know you speak about this when you talk about different attachment styles as well, we can sometimes feel safe or feel like we can sometimes feel attracted to a person who is not healthy for us because it feels familiar. And it may feel familiar because you've been in a relationship, a close relationship to somebody before where it wasn't particularly healthy, but because your nervous system feels a familiarity there, and this may also go back down to your relationship with your parents, you're attracted to that person because there's something in you that feels like, okay, this is safe. It may not necessarily be safe. So that's something that I would want to inquire into as well. If we're feeling continually hypervigilant around somebody, it can also mean that we're mirroring some of their anxiety, because we do tend to mirror each other's nervous systems. So I say calm is contagious. Anger is contagious. If you have an angry person in the room, other people will start to feel angry. If you have somebody that's very, very calm and very grounded, it has a ripple effect to other people around them. So is this individual picking up on their partner's anxiety or their partner's hypervigilance? Does it actually belong to them? And the more you start to know yourself and understand your history and understand your attachment patterns as well, the easier it is to differentiate what belongs to the other person and what actually belongs to you.
Yeah, and I can really relate to that. When I was dating and learning to understand myself, and the dating process can be incredible for that, to learn to understand yourself and your old patterns. When you're opposite someone who really is just the old pattern of man that you would normally go for, that feeling in your body of feeling so drawn to them but slightly anxious at the same time, so interesting to observe that. But also, as you're saying, the gold in really knowing, what is it that I need? Who am I? What are my patterns? I just realized that I'm a very sensitive woman, and that's okay. I just thought I was too sensitive and it was something to be fixed. I thought if I did more personal development, became more logical, I tried a myriad of things, but to maybe to dumb down or dull down that sensitivity or get rid of it. But as soon as I went, I am a very sensitive woman. What does this sensitive woman need? I really, really don't need a hot and cold guy who struggles with affection and being present.
Yes.
What I need is the most present kind of man, solid, secure, grounded. How does that kind of man feel to date? I'm going to go on some dates with some, and I'm going to say yes to a second date and a third date and a fourth date, even if I don't feel like ripping his clothes off. And then it's like, do we then start? Is that how we can change our immune system? Is this how we can change our nervous system? Is this how we can start shifting to become more attuned to and turned on to that calmer?
Yes, I think that's a really, really good way. In order to increase the capacity of your nervous system, you need to be giving it that feeling of safety. What does safety feel like? And often what happens is we will go on a date, and this is for men and women. And if we don't feel that those butterflies, we think, oh, this is really boring. This man or woman is really boring. They're not for me. When actually that's what safety feels like. That's what your nervous system is wanting. It's just, it's unfamiliar to you.
Yes, absolutely. We need the practice, don't we, to start becoming more attuned to that? Because I know when I was young,
100%.
I had men who wanted to adore me and love me and take care of me, even in my late teens, early 20s, but I just turned them all down. Because it was like, well, they were more like friends. They were more friendship material. And I just couldn't let them in. Whereas it took years later to be able to really do that. But it requires a certain amount of vulnerability from me that I wasn't willing to do when I was in my late teens. So do you see that a lot in the women who come to you for your nervous system healing?
Generally, when people come to me, they're open to change and they want something to change. So they've tried it. They've tried different things. They may have tried many different types of therapies, but there is some kind of decoding that needs to happen as to the symptoms that they're coming to me with. For example, I had somebody who came in and they were having this shoulder pain. Now, I know with me, I hold any kind of tension in my left shoulder, and my left shoulder will hitch up and it will start to hurt. And then that impacts my neck and it gives me headaches. And so when that's happening in my life, I will sit and I'll think, okay, firstly, I'll breathe into it. And then I'll ask, what is this telling me? What's going on in my life that I'm not looking at, that I'm not addressing? And just to work out why it is that my body is bracing for something, why that tension is occurring there. So generally when people come to see me, they are open to changing the way that they are currently doing things, because they've been doing the same things for a number of years and they're finding that the change isn't happening. And this is where, because I do body work and somatic work, where that slightly differs from the talk therapies, where the talk therapies are fantastic at helping you understand things. But if you're holding things in your body, and if you're holding certain tension patterns, the body work can be really helpful with that. So when we are tuning into a certain part of our body, for example, when I was talking earlier about that feeling that comes up in the gut and then the heart center and then the throat, what's happening in your throat? And this happens a lot with women. It's their voice. What are they not expressing? What is it that they want to be saying right now? And so we work a little bit like that. And then there tends to be things come up, emotions may come up, there may be an emotional release, memories might come up, a period of time in their lives where they felt that they couldn't use their voice, where they couldn't speak out, where they couldn't say, I'm unhappy with that, or I would like this, or to express a need. And once you start to understand these things about yourself, it changes everything. It changes how you show up in the world. It changes your relationships.
So what I would love, Raj, is for women to kind of go away with some specific things they can do. You've spoken about a few, how you can deal with difficulties and conflict with a partner. You were speaking about asking yourself, what am I bracing for with my left shoulder? But what is a simple thing a woman can do either before or after a date or during a hard conversation with a partner to help regulate their nervous system in the present, in that moment?
So there are lots of small things that you can do. For example, excuse me, it's very situational as well. If you're sitting with somebody and you feel activated and you don't feel like there's a legitimate reason, for example, the person sitting in front of you is not objectively a threat to you right now, but you're feeling something. Breathing, your breath is the fastest and the best and the easiest tool that you can use. So you take a breath in and then you elongate your out breath. So you can breathe in for 4, you can breathe out for 6. And that long out breath, longer than your in breath, it activates your vagus nerve and it tells you that you're safe. There's another one called the physiological sigh, where you take in 2 quick in breaths and then you breathe out. Now, if you're feeling really activated, I would advise breathing out through your mouth. Ideally, you want to be breathing in and out through your nose, but breathing out through your mouth, it helps, just helps relax you just that much faster. It takes the edge off. Aside from the breathing, if you are in that situation that we were talking about earlier, where you're sitting opposite somebody at dinner and you're feeling triggered by something that they've said, some kind of micro expression, something in their tone of voice, something you may not even actually be aware of, you can excuse yourself, go to the washroom, run your wrists or your hands under cold water. That could be very soothing. Also, if you don't mind doing this, I've done all sorts of things in the ladies' room when it comes to calming my nervous system and helping those around me, is bilateral stimulation. So you can cross your arms over, fold your arms over your chest, and you just want to be swaying and just tapping each side. And for those of us who've had children, there's also I call it the Darth Vader breath, where you're running your breath over your voice box. So it sounds a little bit like this.
I remember going through a very traumatic time in my marriage and I couldn't scream because obviously I'd terrify my children, but I needed to vent some of it. And I remember doing silent screaming like that. I'd go to my shed or to the bathroom and just go.
Yes.
It's kind of like a Darth Vader scream.
Yeah. Any kind of movement, because if you're feeling activated and you're feeling your fight or flight kick in, any kind of movement will be helpful for you. And it's okay to excuse yourself. It's okay to leave the table. It's okay to go and do what you need to for 10 minutes in the ladies' room. It's absolutely fine. And then return back. And if you feel like you want to leave, you can say, I'm really sorry, but I need to go home. And you leave. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And if you have been in a situation where you have done that, then you know it makes you feel a little bit better the next time when you're on a date, because you know that you're not trapped. It's not somebody that you have to go home with or that you are going to have to see when you go home. You can leave at any time you want to. And that's also really important for your nervous system to know, because if you've been in situations before, especially if you've been married and you're having to go back home to and be with the same person, and you can't run away. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. Knowing yourself, actually, I can pull out my chair. I can say, I'm sorry, I'm going home, and you can leave. And often that's it. We get a really big sense of independence when we do that. And we're showing our nervous system, no, I'm safe. I can leave. I left the situation. It didn't feel good to me, and I left it.
Well, I love that, because so often, and this is what I often did, is I put my nervous system second and I put the feelings of the man first, or my perceived feelings of what he might think or not think about me. And my goodness, actually, I'm thinking about it. If you were to say, if a woman were to say, do you know, I'm feeling really anxious, I'm going to go home now. You also get to see how a man shows up in that situation. Like, how does he respond?
Yes.
How does he show up? Does he get prickly and resentful and annoyed with you? Like, hey, I just bought you dinner. What are you doing? Cutting the evening short. Or does he say...
And if he does,
If he does, he shows you who he is. And also, if a guy says,
exactly,
look, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And then he checks in with you later with a message and he rings you the next day. I mean, that's showing you a partnership material. That is something that your future husband or long-term partner needs to know about you. And actually, he'll remember. It's gold, the information you get. And it's going from, instead of trying to people please the people around you, it's pleasing yourself. And I remember reading in a book, I think it was Glennon Doyle's we can do hard things. I can't remember it. Untamed. And
I love that book.
Yeah, she was speaking with her daughter. Her daughter was in a dilemma about what club she did at school. One club her brother wanted her to do, and another club she wanted to do, but she couldn't do both of those after school clubs. And her mum said to her, well, how about you disappoint other people before you disappoint yourself? And that, to me, is what you're saying, Raj. It's like, let's disappoint the man on the date before you disappoint your nervous system and the healing of yourself and the inner child and the wounded part of us, however we want to name it. How about we disappoint the man instead of disappointing ourselves? So thank you so much for these. And this is just what we would intuitively do to soothe a baby. It's just like, that's what we do. We rock, we stroke. This is what we do. It's just so wonderful. And would you say as well, if a woman is going through a breakup, difficult breakup, heartbreak, is there anything you would add to what you've already added there? Any sort of mind-body practices that would really help her in that situation?
So over the years, what I've found, it's something actually very practical. I would advise throwing themselves into something where they're creating. So when they look back on the emotions that we have, anger, whatever it may be, they're very creative. Our emotions are very, very creative. And when we use them, we channel them into something positive. So say you've broken up with somebody and you could, for 6 months or a year, sit at home each night and weep. And sometimes we need to do that. We need to give ourselves permission to do that. But then there needs to come a point where we use that energy, we channel it into something really positive. So when we look back on that period of time, we see it as a gift because I painted this, I created that, I learned to play the violin, I got really fit in the gym. There is something really, really positive to show for it. And I feel that helps so much.
Yeah, yes, that is very interesting. I've never heard anyone say that get creative. I've definitely heard people say, focus on your own life, do the things you love. But sometimes we don't know what we love when we're feeling so heartbroken or we're stuck in the difficulties of a difficult breakup. But actually, get creative is such a wonderful instruction for a woman. And I've heard you speak on Instagram as well about when we are feeling unsafe, when our kind of core needs are not met, it's very hard to meet when we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and that triangle.
Hierarchy of needs, yes.
Yes, it's very, very difficult to then meet those needs of self-actualization and creativity. But actually, are you saying just to do something creative, even if it's like cooking something new with great smells and textures or something aesthetic in our home can start to trigger these good feelings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Painting. And then you've created something from all of that emotion.
Yeah.
You can see something positive that's come from it, as opposed to, I'm heartbroken. That person took all this from me. That person took, a year of my life or 6 months of my life. Or the focus then goes on to, wow, look at what I've done and look at what I've made from all of that. And it rewires you to see adverse experiences in a different way as well, because we grow through adversity.
Yeah, we are equipped for it. It's just giving ourselves the tools and the just giving ourselves the support. Something you said about planting flowers. What is it about women and having their hands in the soil? Because every friend of mine, we all say the same thing. Your head is busy. You've got loads of things going on. Go outside and pull up a few weeds, repot your geraniums, whatever it is. We all just calm right down.
So we have this when we walk barefoot on the earth as well, where the earth and your body is transferring electrons. It's very, very grounding. And when we're getting our hands into the earth, aside from all the minerals that we're absorbing in our skin, we're grounding and we're feeling connected to the earth. And then when you're planting as well, women by their nature are nurturers. You're watching something grow, watching something emerge. It's really beautiful. So if you do have a garden, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's just a magic thing that happens, isn't it? I find bare feet outside, deadheading roses, anything, instant calm. There's so many from this conversation, Raj. There are so many. I feel like there's just like a menu we can pick from, doing things that work for you. And that's what I'd say to you, anyone listening, is just choose the thing that works for you. If you are walking down the street, this is one of the things I used to do, is I would just take time to smell the roses in the gardens as I walk past. I mean, luckily, I live in England, and at this time of year, we have incredible,
I do that too,
fragrant roses, and just the colors, textures, smells, all of that is nervous system regulating, but it's also what feminine energy is. So even if you're a man listening to this, connecting with that, the senses, whether it's in smell, touch, taste, vision of colors. If I go through a department store, I consciously just touch the soft things just to bring me into my body. The soft, fluffy blankets and cushions and silk things, and because it brings me into my body. And now I just crave it. I walk past roses, I will double back to smell them and stroke them because of that feeling I get.
Brilliant.
Raj, as we finish this conversation, and that I've absolutely loved, if you could, what's your message to women? Like, if you could tell every woman one thing about how her body and her love life are connected, well, what would your message to her be?
Well, I would say learn how to connect to your body, learn what you like. Just like you said, you would touch things and you would smell things, you'd give yourself the sensory input, which is very, very regulating, a good way to ground yourself and bring yourself back into the present. It's a really good question, because my mind is now being flooded with about 50,000 things I'd like to say.
If you want to say something else, and it doesn't have to be about her love life and her body, but if
your nervous system impacts absolutely everything. And so know yourself. That's the most important thing. Know who you are, know what's acceptable to you and what isn't acceptable to you.
So this podcast is called The Adored Woman. And everything you were just saying then about know yourself, and that sounds just like such a clear message. Know yourself. That to me is what being an adored woman is.
That said, I've remembered what I was going to say. You said something earlier about how you admit to yourself that you're a deeply sensitive person, as opposed to I'm going to try and fix myself to numb that down, to make myself less sensitive. Why? There are billions of people on the planet. There will be a man who, and there is, because you're engaged and you're getting married, a man who will love and appreciate and respect that sensitivity. So don't try to change who you are, but do get to know yourself and what you like and what you don't like. And then don't compromise on those things that are really important to you. Don't try to be anything that you aren't, because fundamentally long term, it won't make you happy.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And that to me is the epitome of the adored woman. It's knowing yourself. It's loving and accepting who you are. it's not about the end game of being adored by a man, but it's like, how can I adore myself? And I love that. Raj, you have some free guides on your website. I saw you've got a free panic attack recovery guide. So not everyone experiences. Some people do experience panic attacks, but will this be useful for people who also can experience times of high anxiety?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And we touched on some of those things already when you were talking about stimulating your senses, stopping to smell something, touch something. There's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique that's mentioned in there, where you want to bring yourself back to the present and you look around and you name 5 things you can see, what you can smell, what you can touch, all of those sorts of things, and 1 thing you can taste.
Great. So people
the bilateral stimulation.
Wonderful. So people can get that guide. And I think I also saw a free meditation as well. So you've got some free resources. So everyone, I will link those in the show notes so you can get those. It's been absolutely wonderful. Is there anything else that you wish I'd asked you that I hadn't asked you that you wanted to share with us?
I think we could probably get 5 to 10 more chats out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really wonderful. Thank you so much, Raj. Really appreciate you for being here.